right. First of all, we need to take a roll. So if you would punch in that you're here. Situation. After he finishes, uh, Senator Carrico's time will be first since he's the farthest away. And I believe that there will be some effort to get Senator Lucas and Senator Carrico as one, so we don't waste a whole lot of time there. So, amigo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in Vegas. Is this thing on? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a total of, I think, seven bills. And what we wanted to do was to try to group them together so that we could compare apples to apples. You have 3 casino bills that would allow for casino gaming. You also have 2 sports betting bills. I also note that the casino bills also have a sports betting component to it, also, in addition to just the 2 bills that just provide for sports betting. And then you have 2 charitable gaming bills. So what we want to do is to talk about the 3 casino bills and compare and show the differences, then the 2 sports betting bills, and then the 2 charitable gaming bills. Now, the 2 charitable gaming bills, it's really not a lot to compare in terms of differences because they're doing different things. But I'll just give a brief overview of what they do. Now, the sort of the connecting thread to all of these bills is that they involve gambling, and by definition, you have to have those 3 things: the making of a bet of a wager or something other of value in exchange for a chance to win, and the outcome of the contest or the event is uncertain. So that's always what we're looking for. And of course, all gambling in Virginia is illegal unless it's been accepted, and the legislature has decided to have some exceptions: charitable gaming, horse racing, or pari-mutuel wagering, and the lottery. So with that, what you should have is a 3-page sheet. The first sheet is an overview of the casino bills. The second sheet is an overview of the sports betting bills, and the third sheet is an overview of the charitable gaming bills. And I want to also say that we have received some amendments from the lottery department, and they'll make sense as I get more into this. Some of them are technical, just in terms of all 3 of the casino bills have a role for the lottery department and board, and it's sort of cleaning up to make sure that we have the powers and duties in the right place. But whatever decision is made today, we will make sure that we roll in those recommended amendments from that agency. So with that, Senate Bill 1126, 1503, and 1706 all would allow casino gaming in Virginia. At the very top of this sheet, there are about 7 things that I want to just note that all of them have in common. It would be administered by the lottery department. They would allow for sports betting. That's within the definition. Now, I put there that live sports betting, and that's going to be important in just a little bit. There's been a recent decision or a memorandum put out by the Department of Justice, which will affect how we may want to look at sports betting. I put live sports betting because I think that live sports betting would be allowed, but online sports betting under the Federal Wire Act would probably be illegal. And we can certainly make sure that it's clear if that's what the patrons want. The regulatory schemes are very similar. You license operators, you permit suppliers, as well as service workers. A referendum is required before it can be done. They both have a problem, all three of them have a problem gambling treatment fund where money is put aside from the gaming to treat problem gamblers. There's a voluntary exclusion program, which I have for me with any ice cream shop. It basically says, don't let me in, I can't, control myself. And there's a tax rate of 10% on the adjusted receipts. So all those are the same. Now, in terms of the differences, the first is location. Senate Bill 1126 describes, uses description to describe Portsmouth and Bristol. Senate Bill 1503 has Portsmouth, Bristol, and Danville. Senate Bill 1706 says that it can be done within a city with a population greater than 200,000. In terms of the operator, under the Senate Bill 1126 and 1503, any person who meets the requirements, and they're very specific in terms of doing background checks and having to have a financial worth, and there's some review done of the principles that will be involved. But if you meet those requirements, then you can be licensed. Under Senate Bill 1706, it is limited to a federally recognized Indian tribe. And if you look on line 734, if you have the bill before you, that's where they describe what that, what the parameters of what the Indian tribe would have to be. The other differences are in terms of distribution of tax proceeds. In the first two bills, you have sort of the same. I'll try to note what the subtle differences are. For Senate Bill 1126 and 1503, 50% of that 10% tax would go to the state. That's broken down in terms of 1% to the problem gamblers fund, 50% to the Virginia Public School Construction Fund, and then 49% to the general fund. 50% is then goes back to the locality, and there's set up a local casino gaming proceeds fund. Now, each of the, there are some very specific, I guess, distribution instructions that are given, and I don't know if you want to go that deep into it, but I wanted to kind of stop at the high level and saying that 50% of the proceeds from the gaming will go to the locality in which the gaming money was made. If you want to look specifically at that breakdown, you can go to line 1154. Now, I think we have received amendments that are going to be more specific, but they go into how that money is to be spent by that locality. Didn't have a chance to get ready for you, but anything that happens today, we will of course be ready to roll them in. Any questions about the three casino bills?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Senator Serval.
Amigo, I noticed on here that you said the common tax rate on each of them was 10%. I would note that the casino that I can jog to from my house across the Potomac River, I believe Maryland has a tax rate of 20% on tables and 56% on slots. Do any of these bills have differential tax rates based on the type of gaming occurring?
No, these three bills have 10% on the adjusted gross, and no differences in terms of whether they're table games or other types of games.
Okay, one further question, Mr. Chairman.
Continue.
Are you aware of any resources that we could rely upon to try and determine or see what kinds of tax rates or tax structures other states around the country have done on this?
I can certainly get that information. I will take that as an instruction, and I will.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that information is available to
Okay.
see what, in particular.
Just like a chart would be helpful.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
All right. Okay, continue, Amigo.
I think that's a sign.
think Senator Locke is trying to turn my mic off again. The next bills are the sports betting bills. That's Senate Bill 1238 for Senator Peterson and Senate Bill 1356 for Senator Wagner. There are a couple of things that they have in common. They both prohibit wagering on youth sports, and I think I have a mistake there. I think just Senator Wagner's bill just prohibits youth sports. I don't think that there's a prohibition on Virginia sports. Is that right, Brooks? And they also have a problem gambling treatment fund and the voluntary exclusion program, and they have similar penalties. Probably the reason that this has come forward is that there has been a recent court decision, Murphy versus the NCAA, which basically stated that the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act of 1992 was unconstitutional because it basically it said that states could not regulate or establish a gambling regime. Now, I know that you said that, so what about New Jersey and Nevada? Well, there were, I think, Delaware, Oregon, Montana, and Nevada, and New Jersey were exempted. They were grandfathered in. But after this law, no other state could establish any sort of a sports betting regime. So when that changed, we see the other states have put in place sports betting, and that's what these two bills would do. There are some marked differences in terms of the approach of these bills. In terms of the regulatory entity, 1238 would establish a new department, a Virginia sports betting department. You'll find that on page 11, line, actually, that's not the right, I'll give you the right part of it. Senator Wagner's bill would use the lottery board and department, but would change the name of it to the Virginia Lottery and Sports Wagering Commission. So it would expand the department. In terms of the operators for Senator Peterson's bill, sports betting can occur statewide, and there's no limitation on the number of licensees. I think one thing that's important to note that there's the concept of pre-qualified localities, and that's basically if you are Colonial Downs or you're in a locality that already has an off-track betting facility. The moment this legislation becomes effective, you'll be able to apply for a license if you're in those localities. For Senator Wagner's bill, it is set up to have the commission be the entity that runs the game. There are provisions in there to authorize this expanded commission to contact with the third party to run the games. So you see that makes a difference in terms of there are no adjusted receipts to tax because it's all coming to the agency. In terms of the online sports betting piece, 1238 specifically prohibits online sports betting. Senator Wagner's bill authorizes the commission to establish a sports wagering platform that would allow for online wagering on professional and college sports events. In terms of tax distribution, again, there is, for Senate Bill 1238, there is a 12% tax on gross adjusted income. And Senator Servo, I don't think that there's a breakdown in terms of types of games. Of that 10%, 50% goes to the locality in which the funds were generated. 2% goes to the problem gambling treatment fund. I'm sorry, 2.5%, and 2.5% goes to the operations fund, which is set up to reimburse or to cover the cost of the regulatory program, and 45% goes to the Virginia Foundation for Community College Education Fund. In terms of Senate Bill 1356, since the program is run by the state, as I said, there's no adjusted receipts tax. It's basically 95% going into the general fund, 2.5% going to the problem gambling treatment fund, and 2.5% going to cover administrative costs. So that's basically a strafing run at those two bills. Are there any questions about those?
Okay. Amigo, since the patrons of the other bills are members of this committee, let's hold the rest of that presentation until later.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
All right, now, we're going to hear these, I've allotted about 15 minutes for each of the presentations. I am going to ask if those who are opposed to any particular one, they can come up and speak after, but if it is opposed gambling overall, I'm going to hold you to the end and you can explain why you do that. After that happens, we will be hearing from Secretary Lane, who will tell us what the governor's thought process was in a study. All right, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to streamline the time here, I want to ask Senator Lucas to come up with me also, and we're going to try to do this in an effective way and as quick as possible, and I'll let her start out, and then I'll follow up.
Thank you, Senator Carrico. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I want to preface my remarks by saying that I know a lot of people have been working to try to get gaming into Virginia for a long, long time, but probably not many people for as long as I have. As you all recall, I first started participating in trying to get casino gaming in Virginia back in 1994, when then Delegate Gerald Jones and Delegate Kim Melvin were sponsoring riverboat gaming. Well, since that time, I have been introducing legislation for a landline casino almost ever since, and to the fact that I've introduced legislation for almost the last 10 years, keeping this legislation alive. I'd like to first start off by recognizing the appointed and elected officials from Portsmouth. So if I could have them stand, please, and then I'd like to have those who are in support from Portsmouth also stand. Could you stand so this time I can call your names? Okay, I've got Mayor John Rowe, Vice Mayor Lisa Lucasberg, Councilman Shannon Glover, our City Manager, Dr. Patton, and our Chief of Police, Dr. Chief Chat. I'd like for all of the other Portsmouth people who came up to support this legislation to stand with our appointed and elected officials, please.
Thank y'all for attending.
Thank you.
Louise.
You forgot James.
Delegate
I didn't
James.
see my delegate come in, but my delegate, Matthew James, is also here. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, projects are a game changer for the local and regional economies of three economically distressed parts of the state: Portsmouth, Southside, and Southwest. By year 7, these projects are expected to bring in over $122 million to the general fund annually, nearly $100 million in local revenues annually, and over 15,000 new direct jobs. New revenue can be used to fund a host of local and regional critical needs, including education, new and renovated schools, public safety, and transportation. Projects are not colorblind when it comes to these kinds of jobs. They're not blue collar, they're not white collar, but just good jobs on which you can support a family across a variety of areas, including hotel operations, entertainment, accounting, and finance, security, information technology, food and beverage, facilities, executive management, compliance, marketing, procurement, risk management, transportation, and logistics, and many, many more. As a matter of fact, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, we will be able to also partner with local community colleges to help provide the skills needed for a lot of these individuals who will be working at the casinos, many jobs starting with at a low $40,000 up to $75,000 a year. These are good paying jobs on which our localities will be able to benefit. Now I turn it back over to my colleague and partner, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Senator Lucas. First, I just want to recognize and have them stand in the audience, those that are from Bristol that left at 3 a.m. this morning to get here to be a part of this discussion. So if you're from Bristol and you've come this way, you'll please stand.
Wow.
Thank y'all for attending. Thank y'all for attending today.
Thank you. I hope I get out to get back to Southwest before you guys do. So, Mr. Chairman, for 18 years I've been fighting legislation like this, and one of the reasons is I've always felt that this is important, that the people that are affected the most in the locality have a chance to make that decision and not us. And this time, introducing the legislation, the key opponent of the legislation for me is the local referendum choice, allowing the citizens that are affected the most in that region to be able to make that choice and decide if it's a good fit for them or if it's not. And that's what this bill actually does. I have full faith in the lottery board by setting up a arm of the lottery board for them to be able to tightly regulate an industry like this. They've been around for 30-plus years. They have experience in that field, and I believe that they can do that. One of the key things in this bill that I can assure you, being a former state police officer, a career in law enforcement, that we're setting up areas of being able to make sure that the public is protected from this industry or in this industry so that crimes don't rise and the people that attend these functions are safe and it's family friendly and able to be in the environment in which Bristol offers. I began by starting as a former crime prevention specialist in the state police, calling my colleagues in the state police and introducing them to these investors so that they could get started initially on trying to figure out ways that they can do this safely in an environment that we see today. And even though I've taken a lot of criticism and a lot of kidding over this putting this bill in, because everybody knows I will probably never step foot in that facility. Even my aides have given me such a hard time. I probably won the only bet I'll make, and I wore this tie with dice on them just because they bet me that I wouldn't. So I did. So I would appreciate any consideration that you give this bill and hope you look favorable on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Since neither one of those two patrons recognize the folks from the Danville community, I would ask y'all to raise your hand if you're standing or if you're here. And thank y'all for making the trip up. Okay. Who is going to Chuck, have you got this set up?
Mr. Chairman, I'm John Rowe, Mayor of the City of Portsmouth. This is a very important bill for not only Portsmouth and Bristol and for Danville, but for the Commonwealth. You see that by year 7, 15,600 jobs will be created. And let me give you kind of a idea of what that means. In Hampton Roads, 15,600 jobs would be the third largest employer in Hampton Roads. That's the order of magnitude of this job creator, this bill. It's like a Amazon 2 coming again to Virginia, and particularly in our case to Portsmouth. Portsmouth is the geographic center of the Hampton Roads region, 1.8 million people. It is the geographic center for our population. And the demographers predict that over the next half century, the growth in the Hampton Roads region is going to take place from Portsmouth west through northern Suffolk and Isle of Wight. So we're well positioned. We have the best site for a casino in Hampton Roads. If you're familiar with the Intercoastal Waterway, our site is at mile marker 0. Mile marker 0 on the Intercoastal Waterway. It is shovel ready. We have the site, we have the developer. What we don't have is the legislation. And so we respectfully request that you give this bill, these casino bills that would have such a great impact on these 3 economically distressed communities, your favorable consideration. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Randy Eads, and I'm the city attorney and the city manager for the city of Bristol, Virginia. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity today to voice my support for this casino legislation that will help the city of Bristol, Virginia, Danville, and Portsmouth. I'll be talking about economic development, and then we will eventually get to the casino here in just a moment. But I want to congratulate each and every one of you all. If you had a hand in bringing Amazon to Virginia, congratulations. That was a tremendous job, a job well done, and it's something that was needed in the Commonwealth. $1 billion will be invested by the Commonwealth of Virginia for that project. Virginia Tech was also going to be building a new campus, a $1 billion campus, and George Mason, over the next 25 years, will invest $125 million to secure their campus as well. And that economic development project is a tremendous opportunity for everyone in Northern Virginia. But let's not forget Southwest Virginia, Southside Virginia, and other parts of Virginia help contribute to those incentives that were given to Amazon. Our tax dollars help secure this opportunity as well. It's my hope that Amazon and other technology-based companies can see the benefit of having a portion of their operations in Southwest Virginia and in Southside Virginia, and that they can be of a benefit to Southwest and Southside if they ever need to expand their operations, and I'm more than willing to meet with them at any time of the day or night. As a city manager, I'm responsible for economic development in the city of Bristol, Virginia. And the one aspect of this bill that's very important that I think we have so much support for is the fact that people actually get to make a choice as to whether or not they want casinos in their locality. And they get a chance to say, this is the future of our city, or they have the opportunity to say, we do not want our city to be associated with a resort and a casino that creates thousands of jobs and will increase the local tax base. This legislation does not force any locality to have a casino. It's asking the people to make a choice about their future. If this legislation passes, and it's already been touched on today by Senator Lucas, there's $122 million over the next 7 years that will go into the Virginia's general fund. $99 million will go into the general funds of Bristol, Danville, and Portsmouth collectively. Let me tell you, for the city of Bristol, that is huge. We have local revenues of $35 million. And with the projections from Chimera, we are projected to have $26.8 million come into our local general fund due to this casino project. And I'm going to say one more thing. Each and every one of you all know it. The city of Bristol is the most fiscally distressed city in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We need that $26.8 million. We have a $2.2 million debt increase payment coming up in 2022. It's not going to be pretty if we don't have additional revenue coming to our city. My employees have not had raises in 10 years. I have police cars that are 21 police cars out of 63 are over their max useful life. We are in dire circumstances in Southwest Virginia. This offers opportunity and hope not only for the city, but for the citizens of Southwest Virginia. We need something different. Manufacturing is not what it used to be. People keep harping, bring manufacturing back to Bristol. It's not what it used to be. It's never going to be what it used to be. I will take any suggestion anyone has for this, but we have to do something different, and this is it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will just close with this. Please give us your support on this. Support the bill, support us, support Southwest Virginia. I will turn it over now to the Vice Mayor of Danville, Mr. Lee Vogel. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for the time. As I said, I am Lee Vogler. I have the great privilege of being the Vice Mayor of the City of Danville, and I'm honored to be joined here today by Councilman Madison Whittle, Councilman Dr. Gary Miller, our great delegate Danny Marshall, our Chief of Police Scott Booth, and our Councilman James Buckner. Very much like Bristol, we've struggled for a number of years in the Danville region. We lost our anchor industries, and those jobs are gone, and they're not coming back. So we need to be innovative and creative to bring new jobs to our region. And we have a great economic development staff that's working hard to make that happen. But what we have in front of us now is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. It is the most significant economic development opportunity that Danville has seen in my lifetime, with an unprecedented number of jobs, and maybe even more importantly, an unprecedented amount of revenue that our region desperately needs. Revenue that can help rebuild our schools that have fallen into disrepair, revenue that we could use to build a new police station that our chief needs and our officers deserve. And oftentimes, where we're geographically located, Danville, we're a little bit off the beaten path. Sometimes that's a disadvantage, but in this case, it's actually an advantage for us because we're within a short driving distance of metropolitan areas in North Carolina, Raleigh, Durham, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, Charlotte, where folks from North Carolina will come to Virginia to spend money rather than the other way around. For Danville, that's a game changer. That is a game changer that our city and our region desperately needs. And so, as has been mentioned by others, we're not asking for handouts, we're not asking for special favors. We're just simply asking that you allow the people of Danville to decide what is best for Danville. I trust our citizens to make that choice, and I hope that you will give them that same opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Chuck, is that completed? All right, very good. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Todd Gatkin with the Family Foundation.
All right, I'm gonna stop you there
All right.
because I know the Family Foundation is gonna pose all these. I'll save you the time of repeating yourself over and over and just let you say that at the end. Is that okay?
That's perfectly fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Senator Wagner, where are you? He stepped out. After harassing me for 2 days, he steps out at the wrong time. Okay, Senator Lewis, I guess you're up then. I understand, but I want to get these, I have to live up to my commitments,
If he's here, Mr. Chairman, I'll stand down if you.
if he's here.
1706. No.
All right, let's not delay any, let's keep moving.
Want me to keep going, Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
All right. All right, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I have Senate Bill 1706. Amigo, Mr. Wade has done an excellent job of obviously running through you the nuts and bolts of these things, which are remarkably similar, if not identical. I want to speak just briefly, if I can, a little bit about this project and its importance to my district. As many of you know, the 6th Senate District has as its constituent about half the city of Norfolk, or constituency about half the city of Norfolk. For about a year now, the city of Norfolk has been talking with Pamunkey Indian tribes about this project. These talks came to light recently, even though the Pamunkeys were pursuing the federal land into trust route. When it became apparent that Virginia was going to seriously consider commercial casino gambling, it became important that we obviously be a part of the discussion. We can't allow the Pamunkey Indians in this project to be left behind. It is important for you all to know, just by way of background, that the Pamunkey Indian tribe is the only Virginia Indian tribe with the ability to conduct gaming. There are 7 tribes in Virginia. 6 of them were federally recognized by congressional act, which specifically excludes casino gambling. The Pamunkeys went the traditional route, and they are able to pursue gambling by land into trust. The Pamunkey project is a star facility, 500-room convention hotel, casino, spa, on a 20-acre piece of land next to Harbor Park, if you're familiar with the waterfront in the downtown Norfolk area. 3,500 full-time jobs. This is excluding the construction jobs that would be created. 1.5 billion annual economic impact, and about 6.7 million visits a year to this facility. Obviously, a tremendous shot in the arm, not only for the city of Norfolk, but for the entire region. It could not come at a better time for the city of Norfolk. Like many of these communities that you've heard about prior to this presentation, Norfolk is facing some tough economic times. Our unemployment rate is higher than the rest of the state. And with the recent announcement, as I'm sure you're all aware, that Norfolk Southern's relocating its headquarters down to Atlanta, that poses some additional economic stressors for the city of Norfolk. I want to point out to you the history of the Pamunkey tribe a little bit. The Pamunkeys were here thousands of years before the ships landed at Cape Henry. They were here before Jamestown. And despite all the difficulties that ensued for them and their tribe in the wake of our arrival here in America, they proudly consider themselves and call themselves Virginians. We would like to honor their contribution to the nation and this Commonwealth. They have done yeoman's work in achieving this federally recognized status and I believe this project would be invaluable to them, very valuable to my constituency in Norfolk, and more so to the entire region. This could be a win-win for everybody. And I want to point out that we are not here to exclude anybody. This project is the Pamunkey project. The Pamunkeys, the population parameters that you see in our bill are representative of their ancestral lands and the areas in which they were interested or showed an interest. The talks with Norfolk are obviously very far along, and that is the project we present. It is not to be exclusive to anyone, and certainly the General Assembly working these bills through the process can make those allowances. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I have Chief Robert Gray of the Pamunkey Tribe here, if you'd like to hear from him or questions.
Mr. Chairman, I have a
There's
question. I have a question.
Senator Locke.
Senator Lewis, I know you said that you're not trying to be exclusive, but with the population threshold, you're excluding the entire Virginia Peninsula.
But again, this is giving the Pamunkey Indian tribe a seat at the table for their project. As this bill works its way through, or these bills work their way through the process, we're not trying to be exclusive. This was about giving them a seat at the table for their project. This is where they're interested in having their project.
Senator Evans.
I had a few questions, but I'll just maybe just start with one for Senator Lewis, and I don't know if Senator Lucas would comment on it either. I have shared the concern of Senator Locke that if we were to grant casino gambling to the Pamunkey Indians, that Portsmouth not be excluded from the process. And earlier it was represented to me that they could coexist or share revenue or, quote, work it out. And I'm just concerned that if we pass this, I want to make sure it's worked out so that people in Portsmouth are not economically left out of this equation. And I don't know, you said work your way through the process. I don't know if there's anyone else in the room, Senator Lucas or one of the city managers or someone who could explain how they might coexist or share revenue or how that scenario
We're
would
not
work.
going to get into that. We're going to let them work it out, and we will deal with it Monday.
A Monday's meeting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I had other questions, but they're for the other speakers. Should we hold off on those?
Well, if we get into a bunch of questions.
Okay,
we'll never finish.
Okay, I'll ask him on Monday.
Okay.
I have questions for Senator Lewis. Senator, it's my understanding that in order for the state to work out an arrangement with a federally recognized Indian tribe, to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, we would have to negotiate an interstate compact directly with the tribe as opposed to just passing some law. Is that because they'd be a sovereign country, right?
Well, we're in two tracks. The federal track is something completely separate, and Chief Gray can speak to that a little more than I can. But you are correct. A state compact with the governor would have to be negotiated in that lane. This lane obviously came about when it became apparent that Virginia was seriously considering commercial gaming. We want to be at the table for that discussion. We can't be left out. So they're two separate things.
Got it. Second follow-up question, Mr. Chairman.
Continue.
Would it be accurate to say that by authorizing casinos in other locations, we would undercut the state's bargaining leverage in trying to negotiate the best deal for our taxpayers with the Pamunkey tribe on the interstate compact tract?
Oh, I wouldn't go down that road and speculate on negotiating postures. I mean, Senator Lane, Secretary Lane's going to be here later to speak for the administration. Maybe he's the better person to ask about that.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to hold your witnesses for a few minutes and
Sure.
let Senator Wagner.
Senator
present.
Wagner's here. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I have for you, get the bill number, Senate Bill 1356. And as Amigo so ardently stated, this allows sports wagering and has the Virginia Lottery Board running the sports wagering. And I will tell you, sports wagering is alive and well in Virginia. I can remember the governor of Virginia betting a ham versus crab cakes with the governor of Maryland and that type of thing. I think all of us have probably entertained at one point in time another March Madness poll or those types of things. Obviously, we've allowed wagering on the sport of kings, horse racing. And don't fool yourself, there is all kinds of illegal sports wagering going on in Virginia today. And we have a lot of folks in Northern Virginia who don't want to do anything illegally, simply drive right across the border into West Virginia where in Charlestown, West Virginia, there's a very, very vibrant, very large sports wagering operation. So it's ongoing right now. For those that are not familiar with sports wagering, you will, if you place a $100 bet on a team and you win that bet, and typically you get $190 back. You get your $100 back plus the 90 for the win. And the operator of the wagering operation keeps the $10, sometimes commonly called the VIG, and that's the profit, if you will, on the entire operation. And you're going to hear on later on bills from folks that want to operate their own private sports wagering. Under that scenario, the net profit would be the VIG. Once that operation subtracts their expenses from that, then the state will get a percentage tax on that. And my personal feeling is if we're going down this road, we ought to maximize the revenues on behalf of taxpayer Virginia. And the way to do that is let the lottery run the sports wagering operation and hire someone to manage it for them on behalf of that. You know, I hear a lot about how folks, well, they won't keep up to date on the latest games, and they won't do that, and they won't, you know, they even came to my office talking about wagering on what will happen in the next quarter or what will happen on the next play. I'm not sure we want to go down that road on behalf of Virginians to begin with, but the way we assure that doesn't happen is to control it and run it through the lottery board, and that will give us control about just how far or how short we want to go down that, because we do control those operations. And I think it's imperative we do that. But the bottom line is the bottom line, Mr. Chairman, is if we go ahead and move with the lottery running this, we will max the revenues on behalf of the citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I think that's what we ought to be about. We all have dealt with the budget. We all understand what the needs are across the Commonwealth of Virginia. This is perhaps well, it will be a very, very large way to raise revenues on behalf of the Commonwealth of Virginia and not charge taxes or have to increase taxes on behalf of it. So that's what it does, Mr. Chairman. I'd be delighted to answer any questions, but it's sports wagering run by the lottery, and one would anticipate that you could go where you could currently buy a lottery ticket, and there would be a machine there to allow you to make a bet based on what might be coming up in the future games. I would also anticipate they would have their own March Madness poll that you could do, and a number of other operations that are very, very popular amongst the citizens of Virginia already. It would just give us the opportunity to realize revenue off of that. I'd be delighted to answer any questions.
I don't see any questions. Do you have any witnesses?
No, I don't,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. The lottery, as you know,
covered it.
falls.
I'm not fishing for it.
I will say this, that I did ask this question within the Senate Finance Committee at a previous Finance Committee meeting back in December when the lottery was present, and asked them if they felt like they could manage this program, and they gave me vast assurances that they were ready, willing, capable, and able of managing this program, despite what the opponents of this bill, but the proponents of running it themselves might tell you.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you. Senator Lewis, your witnesses?
Yes, sir. Thanks, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We have Chief Robert Gray here of the Pamunkey Tribe. Chief Gray is a pretty impressive fellow, and I think he can give you some insights into a little bit of the history and also the process with the federal land into trust if you're interested.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Chief Gray.
Welcome.
Chairman Ruff, members of the committee, my name is Robert Gray, and I'm chief of the Pamunkey Indian Tribe. I'm joined here today by many members of the tribe who made the trip to Richmond because this issue is very important to our future. And right now, I would ask them to stand and be recognized. We had many more that want to come, but obligations kept them away.
Well, thank y'all for coming.
Okay. The significance, or some would say irony, is not lost on me that we sit here today in the Pocahontas building. Our story in Virginia dates back more than 10,000 years. The Pamunkey people were Virginians for thousands of years before the colony of Virginia came to be. In relative peace, we lived, hunted, fished, and traded throughout the Tidewater region of Virginia and beyond. We have endured hardships, both natural and man-made, that have threatened our very survival. Our history is one of strength, courage, generosity, compassion, and perhaps most importantly, resilience. Since the arrival of the English, our tribe's way of life and survival have been put to the test. Our help was crucial for the survival of Jamestown, and for this we were rewarded with the loss of life, land, and liberty. We became the survivors. Through the 17th and 18th centuries, we continue to lose land, but we held on to what we have today. Despite these hardships, we have always been a people that sought to live in harmony with others, including those who have taken our land. We have contributed to the economy, we have culturally enriched the broader community, and have made the ultimate sacrifice to advance the cause of freedom. We fought side by side with Virginia colonists during the Revolutionary War. We fought to keep the country together in the Civil War. We have served bravely in World War I and II, Korean War, Vietnam War, and Afghanistan. To this day, we continue to have a strong relationship with the Commonwealth of Virginia and maintain a treaty with Virginia, and annually we make the required tribute. In the late 1970s, we began the journey of seeking federal recognition through the arduous administrative process that required us to document our continuous presence as a distinct population with its own governmental, social, and cultural institutions. We did not begin this journey for money. At the time, Indian gaming as we know it was almost a decade away, but instead sought recognition to improve the lives of our members and to secure the future for the next generation of Pamunkey people. And we were simply frustrated that despite our history, the United States government did not consider us an Indian tribe. As we pursued recognition, Indian gaming grew in many states, but the Pamunkey tribe focused on our recognition petition. Indian gaming had become such a nationwide issue that our history and tribal identity were despicably challenged by some motivated by greed. Despite this challenge, in 2016, we achieved that federal recognition. Upon receiving recognition, our views on gaming, like those of many Virginians, evolved. And we as a tribe now believe it is irresponsible to pass by the opportunity afforded to us by federal law. The stated purpose of the U.S. Indian Game and Regulatory Act is to provide a legislative basis for the operation and regulation of Indian gaming, protect gaming as a means of generating revenue for the tribes, encourage economic development for these tribes, and protect the enterprises from negative influences. We realized that Indian gaming was our best option for economic development due to lack of capital. We viewed the Indian Game and Regulatory Act as a means to ensure that such gaming would be conducted safely and fairly under federal oversight for the benefit of the tribe, our neighbors, and the Commonwealth. As I stated at the outset, the Pamunkey people were Virginians before Virginia existed, and the majority of our tribal members continue to be Virginians. I myself have lived in Virginia for most of my life and served 25 years with the Virginia Air National Guard. I love this state and its people. Together with the Commonwealth and the localities that we partner with, we all have a vested interest to do what is best for the Commonwealth of Virginia. We want a destination resort to attract out-of-state tourists with disposable income. We want to hire local residents for jobs that pay living wages with excellent benefit packages. We want to work hand in hand with Virginia tourism for the benefit of the Commonwealth. We want to buy Virginia products, contract with Virginia vendors, and do our best to be a good neighbor with the Commonwealth and the locality we find ourselves in. Today, I stand here asking you to please not leave us behind. Following last year's authorization of historical horse race machines, there has been significant interest in expanding gaming in Virginia. This year, there are already numerous bills introduced to expand gaming in various respects, including legislation to pave the way for casinos in multiple areas of the Commonwealth. Let me be clear. We intend to pursue the federal process. But if the Commonwealth is ready to move forward this year with commercial gaming, we just cannot stand by and let others move forward without seeking that same opportunity. Senate Bill 1706 simply gives our tribe equal footing and a chance to make a better life for our people via programs, general welfare programs such as health, housing, education, and senior care. In doing this, we pledge to make a better life for the locality in which we operate and the Commonwealth as a whole. In closing, I'd like to thank Senator Lewis, Delegate Knight, and the many others in this room who have supported the Pamunkey tribe and our efforts to improve the lives of our members and ensure that the future of the tribe is as bright as the future of the rest of Virginia. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you have any more witnesses that you wanted to?
Somebody, if there are no questions for Chief Gray, I've got somebody from the city of Norfolk, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I believe Chip Dix is going to be speaking on behalf of the city of Norfolk.
Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Chip Dix. I'm here on behalf of the city of Norfolk on this matter. And the first thing I'd like to say is that Mayor Alexander sends his regards and regrets that he's not able to be here. He's 100% behind this economic development opportunity, and he values his relationship with Chief Gray. There's been a lot said, and there's a lot in prepared remarks about economic development, and we all know the economic development value of these projects. One of the most important things to understand that the Norfolk proposal is not trying to take away from anybody else. And through the legislative process, those issues can be addressed. As Chief Gray said, the important thing is that the Pamunkeys have a seat at the table, and they've been here longer than anybody else. Nobody's trying to exclude anybody. We hope that you support Senate Bill 1706 and be happy to be part of that discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is that it?
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Are there any questions of any of the patrons on the casino issues? I don't want to get it into a back and forth and try to negotiate the differences here, but if there's specific questions that have not been addressed, now would be the time.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. And this may be for the people representing the potential casino on the Bristol-Danville area. I was wondering, are there any contemplation or in the bill, is there anything in there about local jobs? I know you've got people who may come from across state lines to wager. And I know that in Maryland, in Prince George's, Maryland, where they have the MGM casino, I believe they have a local jobs requirement. I don't know if it's 100% or less, but
I have not seen that in the bill that's being currently presented. What I will tell the committee, I have 1 in 4 citizens living in poverty in the city of Bristol. So when you walk up and down the street, there's 1 in 4 people that's living below poverty. Means 50% of my population receives some form of government assistance on a monthly basis. I have full faith that with this casino project that the developers of the casino would do everything in their power to make sure that the citizens of Bristol and Southwest Virginia have first dibs at those jobs. I cannot speak for them, but I want to work with them to make sure that that happens.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. That's what I want to do is look out for your Virginia citizens first, not necessarily
And
exclusively.
Martin Kent may be able to speak to that as well.
Mr. Chairman, if you'd like for me to address that. Senator, that is absolutely our intent. The answer to your question is no. It is not specific language in the bill. That's certainly the prerogative of the legislature if it chooses to do that. I can assure this committee that is our intent in Bristol.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
No other questions? All right.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, I'm sorry.
Senator Searle.
I saw that data from the Chimera study, but nobody's shown me the Chimera study itself. And I don't know if anybody out there knows whether the numbers that were assumed in that study were assuming all 3 casinos would open, or just one in each individually, or what?
Martin, you want to address it?
Martin Kent again. Speaking on behalf, first and foremost, of the Bristol Resort and Casino, the Chimera studies were done in sequence. The Bristol report was done first. Secondarily, the Portsmouth report was done, and then last, obviously, because the Danville City Council approved it, was done. To answer your question, a separate study has not been done that combines the 3. However, it is my understanding, speaking with Chimera, the same folks that did the reports, is that while there probably will be some overlap, there are 3 really distinct draws. I think some of this has been touched upon this morning. Really, the Bristol project, the focus, candidly, is Eastern Tennessee, Kentucky, Roanoke South is really the draw. The draw from Danville, as was said by the Vice Mayor, is pretty much straight down 29. It's right into the heart of North Carolina. The draw for Portsmouth, the visitors that were contemplated in the Chimera report for it, many of those are tourists, and also many of those are regional. So I think you may have a disproportionate number from what Chimera has done. They would be from Virginia that would obviously patron the establishment in Portsmouth. You would have a large sector of folks from North Carolina that would patron the Danville establishment, and you would probably have a large or disproportionate number, 80% is the estimate that has been put on the table, of folks that would patron the Bristol establishment are from Northeast Tennessee and Kentucky.
Further question, Mr. Chair.
Senator Searle.
And I assume that none of those numbers assume the Pamunkeys opening a separate casino anywhere, period?
No,
right?
sir, they did not contemplate that.
All right, thank you.
All right, Amiga has a number of technical amendments we're not going to deal with today. I think the goal was to try to get all the input we could. I think he has a substitute that may take care of 1126 and 1503. It would be delightful if we could figure out some compromise between the folks so that all three of them can do it. I would anticipate that if the paperwork can be gotten done by Monday, that we would have a vote on the casino part on Monday, and we can address those technical issues at that point. In my personal opinion, if we can't accomplish getting them into one bill, then it's going to be awfully hard to pass two casino bills. So, all right, any further discussion?
I have one more
Yes.
question.
Senator
And I don't know if anybody can address this either, but is there any reason there's any urgency to any of this? Because, I mean, I heard some reference to the possibility that Kentucky or Tennessee might be thinking about it, and then I also was told that they have to pass constitutional amendments and legal changes in their states, and that's going to take years to do. And I'm just curious if there's any reason this has to pass immediately, or whether the state or taxpayers would be prejudiced immediately as opposed to taking a while to look at this. And I don't know if any of the witnesses have any thoughts about that.
Mr. Kent is rising to speak to that, but my concern is, I am, no offense to all y'all, but I'm tired of hearing about gambling this year. So I would like to get it out of our committee, up or down, one way or the other, as quickly as possible.
Well, I'm not necessarily talking about,
Excuse me?
I'm not necessarily talking about getting it out of committee. I'm just talking about getting it approved throughout the legislature, signed by the governor quickly. I'm just wondering whether there's any urgency to that.
I understand what the deeper part of the question was, but we will probably hear from Secretary Lane why that might be an interesting thought.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Yeah, since we all stood together, go ahead.
If I may, it will take 3 to 4 years for any of these operations to be operational. So in regards to the urgency of getting this done, I think there's several reasons. One, if you continue to push it out, it's just another 3 or 4 years down the road before anyone can start with bricks and mortar, and bricks and mortar need to start sooner rather than later. As I mentioned in my talk a few moments ago, City of Bristol has a very huge debt payment coming up in 2022 that we've got to make up the difference for. Now, will the casino help us in 2022? No, but it's going to ease our burden for years to come. So I think there's plenty of time to work out any technicalities between the time this legislation passes, hopefully on July 1st, and the time that the lottery board can pull things together to make sure things are properly in place before the first patron ever steps in front of the casino door.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, their urgency is the very survival of our cities. The city of Portsmouth, 50% of our land area is tax exempt. We have a huge presence of the federal government with the Portsmouth Naval Hospital, the shipyard, the Coast Guard base. If I stood out on my cul-de-sac, there are 15 homes, just like seeing every other home on my street not paying taxes. We need this to survive. We can't annex. We need economic development. We need this economic driver. Thank you.
I would assume that part of our conversation on Monday will be when, and if and when, both. Senator Evans.
Yeah, just one final question about the development of these establishments. I'm wondering, besides gaming, I know that the MGM Casino in Maryland has concerts and hotel and lots of other revenue. Besides gaming, can you just give me a picture? I know it might be very premature, but of what else might be on the site. I'd like Senator Carrico to be able to attend for a concert, if not for gaming.
I can get to that. Just real quickly, because we didn't get to talk about Danville to the previous question. We have $126 million in capital improvement needs at our schools right now that need to happen. That's just to renovate 4 of our schools that are in serious need of improvement. And to give you an idea of what that would take for our tax base to do that on a bond referendum would be a 31-cent tax increase on our real estate tax. That will never pass in Danville. And our schools, the bulk of which were built in the 50s and 60s, will continue to get in worse and worse shape. To the question about other things other than the casino, in Danville, we're not quite as far along as Bristol in terms of the concrete plan, although we do have a developer that's already on the hook, so to speak, for a large building that we have there we call the White Mill, which they've said they'd be very open to working with a casino to work into some of the things that they have planned, which would be a mixed-use facility with entertainment, with apartments, with hotel, conference center, those things. We are very much open to that and have interest in that just on the Danville side of it.
And on the Portsmouth side, this fulfills a plan that the Portsmouth community, not only the city council, but the citizens have had for a mixed-use development of a five-star hotel, a conference center, 200 residential units. It's very much a mixed-use development on the order of magnitude of $500 million. That's what we're looking about. But we need this casino to make that happen.
Thank you. Okay, thank y'all. Senator Peterson. Yes, sir. Sorry to keep you waiting.
That's all right. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I'll be brief because I think I know the hour's late. We need to get home. This is Senate Bill 1238, and I'm not going to rehash what's been already said regarding sports betting, sports gambling. What I'll do is highlight the distinctions between my bill and Senator Wagner's bill. My bill, I'm going to call the bricks and mortar bill. It deals with site-specific areas where sports betting would be allowed to occur. It also would set up a sports betting department. So this would be outside of the lottery board. I do believe you need to have basically a specialized department that would handle this. And there would be a board that would be selected by the governor, and they would hire an executive director who would oversee sports betting. I would also have a problem gambling treatment fund, just like Senator Wagner's does. My bill would authorize betting on professional sports. It would do so at locations where gambling is already legal, for example, whether it be a casino, a racetrack, or OTB, off-track betting site. I would also allow it in those localities that would permit it by ordinance through a referendum, which would be basically the same as the OTB process right now, where if a locality wants to allow OTB sites, they can do that by a referendum. I would just simply extend that to sports wagering. So I won't go through all the merits of sports wagering. You all have heard that, but this is my bill, and I'm not a gambler myself, but I think the time has come, and I do see the cars going to Charlestown, and I see the cars going to MGM, and at some point, we got to try and keep that business here.
Do you have any witnesses?
I don't.
Okay. Do you see, you've heard Senator Wagner, you looked at his bill. Do you see there's any common ground that y'all could agree on?
Yeah, we're both sports wagering bills, and I could probably sit down with, is there common ground? Yes, we both legalize sports wagering.
But can you get together and try to come up with some kind of compromise that Amigo could present to us as a substitute?
By what time frame?
Monday would be great, but.
Today. It'd be helpful to get some feedback from the committee. Whether or not you want the lottery to oversee this or whether or not you want to set up a separate board. That's kind of one critical distinction right now.
I don't see that as a major factor, but other committee members.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
So I'm just trying to understand visually what this would be. Like, I don't know whether we're talking about a 10,000 square foot building or like some hole in the wall you can go up and just go to a desk and run out, like, the size of a small fast food store or something. What are we talking about specifically?
It could be either. Well, obviously, if you have a major casino, they would be able to step into the shoes of this. So that would be obvious. Colonial Downs could step into the shoes of it. That would be obvious. What I would also have is, as I said, a local referendum whereby a locality could allow a licensed vendor to come on and set up a bricks and mortar location. Now, I have to look at Senator Wagner's. It seems like his is more of an online platform. That's why I called mine more the bricks and mortar option, where I want to have specific sites with people coming onto that site. To be honest, my vision of more of an entertainment factor like MGM, I'd like to see Britney Spears. I'd like to see kind of that synergy.
Is your wife aware of that? No.
Well, don't let my wife do that.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I move to PBI.
Mr. Chairman,
immediately.
I have an amendment. But I do have another question. Mr. Chairman, I have another serious question. And I noticed on yours that you also have a 10% tax on adjusted gross income.
Right.
And I know this is new across the country, and there's a lot of different places rushing to it, but 10% just seems awful low to me compared with what other states do. I'm just curious whether you've researched that and whether you all are open to a higher tax rate.
I'm absolutely open to it. I put 10% on there as really a marker. I agree with Senator Wadner. You would tax the VIG. You would tax basically what the gross receipts would be. So I just put 10% as a marker. The other thing I have is I split the proceeds from half would go back to the locality if it's authorized by a locality. The other half I would dedicate to community colleges, just because I think that's an asset that we have statewide, and I like having a dedicated beneficiary.
Okay. Thank you. Anything, yeah, I'm sorry. Senator Ed.
Yeah, just as Senator Peterson, I know that in other states, or at least one other state, some of the bricks and mortar establishments are not picturesque and don't necessarily attract a good crowd.
Right.
I mean, if you're going to have a casino, that doesn't, it seems like it could fit more.
Right.
Have you been to these in other states, or have you contemplated narrowing it down a bit?
Well, ironically, the one place I went to an organized sports betting was in London. And I went to a Ladbrokes, and that was more like a kiosk, kind of like a 7-Eleven. You just walk in and there's games up on the board, and you pick one and, pick your team and put the money down. And that could be one way of doing it. Again, I'd like to see the synergy of, meals tax and beverages, but that's how they do it right now in the
Did you
UK.
win?
I can't, honestly, yes, I did, actually. We covered, yeah.
Recovered. Okay. Senator McPike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Why not, aren't there online platforms you can place like a bet on your phone and other available framework? Why not versus sort of like the stall, you go up to the little tiny window thing, just use an online platform that you already have?
You know what?
Versus sort of a...
Senator, that's a great point. And again, all I can do is tell you, my bias is towards getting people out of their basement or out of their mom's basement, more particularly, getting their face out of the phone. And I'd like to see people actually go to locations. We talk about tourism. Online platform is not tourism, okay? We talk about people getting to a location, and that's my bias. Now, if that doesn't pass, I get it, but that's my bias.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Mason.
do you exclude college?
I do exclude college. Now, I realize that's a little bit pie in the sky, and that's kind of, I realize college athletics, Div 1 athletics get a lot of attention, and I did it sort of as a presumption that amateur athletics, you should not bet on it, because quite frankly, it's subject to more degree of corruption than professional sports for reasons I think should be obvious. Obviously, if you have large national tournaments that have a lot of public scrutiny, yes, those are on the sports book already in Vegas, so I would anticipate that, my legislation is a first step down the road, but I would be very careful about allowing betting on sports where the athletes are not paid and there's not a lot of scrutiny and people can come in and clean up.
Thank you.
Not the Senate House basketball game.
All right. No further questions? One more. Senator.
Okay. Final question. This
Yes,
may
sir.
be of counsel. Amigo, I wanted to ask, if these casino wagering bills were to go forward, would they preclude the sports wagering that Senator Peterson has in his bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that the more recent development is the memorandum from the Department of Justice, which would make the Federal Wire Act clearly applicable. So I don't know if the online sports wagering would be legal. I think
That's the other point.
I think they have a 90-day stayed enforcement, but I think that it would have to be sort of the live sports betting.
Yeah.
I mean, things are evolving, but
That was another point I meant to make in answer to Senator McPike is the online sports wagering is a little bit of a gray area right now legally with the feds.
So just to clarify, Mr. Chair, with counsel, so if I attended a casino in Bristol or Portsmouth or with the Native Americans, as was discussed, the way these bills are written now, is there anything that would stop them from sports wagering?
No, in the casino bills, in the definition of gambling, sports betting is included. It's not clear, but I think that the idea was for it to be live sports betting and not online. And as I said, that's something that can be made more clear.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. B, I think you have a different perspective, is that correct?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. B. Gonzalez, Capital Results, representing FanDuel and DraftKings. As you know, FanDuel and DraftKings are synonymous with sports. You all passed Senator McDougal's bill several years ago regulating fantasy sports in Virginia. It was a model legislation that's been passed around across the country now. And so I've got two folks from the companies here that will give some perspectives on the bills before you, on the Peterson and the Wagner bill, and why the online component is so critical to the success of sports books in Virginia, as well as in brick and mortar, and then address some of the questions with regard to the Wire Act that the chairman has asked for.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Corey Fox. I'm counsel for policy and government affairs at FanDuel. I wanted to begin, unfortunately not with Britney Spears, but with the Wire Act. I'd like to correct something that was just discussed about the Wire Act. The Wire Act has always been understood to apply to sports betting, and for that reason, sports bets have to be placed and received within the specific state where they're authorized. The recent Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel opinion applies to other types of online wagering between states which may be affected, such as online lotteries. But with respect to sports betting, that's in the same place as it was last spring when the Supreme Court struck down the Professional Amateur Sports Protection Act. And in fact, what I wanted to come here to say was to say that offering online sports betting is the key to maximizing the tax revenue for the Commonwealth of Virginia, but also to eliminating the current illegal sports betting market. We believe that the Commonwealth should authorize sports betting. It should include online, and as it does, we want to offer a few recommendations based on our experience offering a really successful sports betting experience in New Jersey, where FanDuel offers both a retail experience at the Meadowlands, right next to where the Giants and Jets play, and also an app. We believe you should allow for multiple operators, multiple permits, however you wish to set it up, so that there's a robust online market with a lot of competition, which leads to innovation, great products, which drives out the illegal market. If there aren't great products, people will go online as they currently are and bet on offshore betting websites. We also believe a reasonable tax rate is necessary here so that the pricing on the bets, you get a minus 110 or a plus 110, not a minus 115, so that the pricing on the bets is reasonable, again, so that you can drive out the illegal market. And we also encourage the Commonwealth of Virginia to look at what these other states have done with respect to consumer protections. We think the state of New Jersey has done a really good job with that, and that's important to ensuring a robust and prolonged sports betting market. This experience in New Jersey has led to over $94 million of taxable revenue based on online and retail sports betting in New Jersey just since, I believe, June 14th when it opened up this past summer. The majority of that has come from online sports betting. I think about 60% has come from online sports betting. So I'll stop there, but I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Great. Okay, welcome.
Thank you. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Sarah Koch. I'm Director of Government Affairs at DraftKings, which, similar to FanDuel, offers both daily fantasy sports and sports betting in states that have authorized it up to this point. We really believe that a critical component to any sports betting framework that the Commonwealth decides to implement will include an online component. It's the best way to realize the full revenue potential of this market. In New Jersey so far, 75% of the handle that's come in on sports betting has been from online platforms. And that's in spite of having a robust retail presence both at the Meadowlands at the tracks and at the casinos in Atlantic City. Mobile is also the best way to combat the illegal market. These very convenient options are already available on everybody's phones. People can go online and place illegal bets in the Commonwealth now. And just the convenience factor of being able to place legal bets in the same way that illegal bets are currently placed is what's going to really transition people from that illegal market to the legal market. Finally, mobile also allows for more robust consumer protections than that you might get in retail alone. You can go up and to a retail window and place a $100 bet on a game without disclosing, any of your history, without that bet being tracked as to you, who personally placed it and their history of placing them and who you are. And when you do it online, you're creating an account. There's some oversight into, who has placed what bet at what time. We can verify your identity and really keep track of who's placing what bets. So for those reasons, we really support any framework for the state or for the Commonwealth that allows for mobile sports betting.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, I'm sorry, Ken.
Try to be real brief. Members of the committee, Mr. Chairman, Ken Hutchison on behalf of Caesars Entertainment. Caesars owns and operates 48 casinos in 14 states and 5 countries. They're the largest footprint in the industry with 55 million customers. Following the repeal of the prohibition, states now have the opportunity to root out what amounts to about an estimated $150 billion illegal market. But let me be clear, this is not going to be a panacea of new revenue. It's just part of the gaming conversation and a key part of the puzzle that you all should consider. But it's vital for the model to be crafted properly and thoughtfully in order for a commercially viable market to develop. Key points to consider, I don't believe I've heard this stated yet, are risk mitigation to the state. Senator Wagner's bill, having the lottery directly operated, creates more risk to the state. Perfect example being if everybody votes or bets on the Washington Redskins and all of a sudden, the other team wins, you've got, and you're going to see that in examples where states have loyal teams. So the model that you put together has got to look at what is the risk to the taxpayer and the Commonwealth. Obviously, tax rates, strong regulatory framework with consumer protections for the state and the actual regulatory entity are all thoughtful considerations, and a fair and strategic process for the market operators to be evaluated. The two bills before you reflect the recognition that the time is right, but both have serious flaws that do not reflect consumer habits and preferences, industry best practices, and successful models that have been erected in other states. And happy to take any questions, but thank you very much.
Questions? Senator, just Mr.
Chairman, I've got a question of, I think it's for council, and it's also one of my concerns. Now, I'm not sure who's going to be negotiating this for the Commonwealth, but I know that whoever's negotiating the compact on the other side is going to probably be one of the top legal experts in the world in this field. So my concern is there a way that whoever's going to be negotiating this for the Commonwealth, that we can go outside and find one of the top experts to represent the Commonwealth when we're negotiating, whether it be the compact or the position of the Commonwealth in any of these?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that there is a provision in the code that will allow for the Office of the Attorney General in certain situations to be able to get outside counsel. But so there is an avenue there. But
Mr. Chairman, maybe I can redirect that a little bit more.
All right.
So I did some reading over the last couple of days about who negotiates this in this field. And some of the top legal experts are law firms out of Los Angeles, New York, New Jersey. My concern is I'm not sure who's going to represent the Commonwealth against these top folks who this is what they do, this is what they've done for 30, 40, 50 years. We're new to this. We're infantile when it comes to this. I want to make sure that whoever we have representing us is the best we can possibly get. So while we're going through the process, we're not going into it blind. And Amigo, I'm not sure how to write that into code. I don't know how to see if that's covered in any of these things. I don't even know if it's covered under the bills where this is where it's discussed. But that's probably my largest concern. If you're going to jump into a tank with folks who are experts on swimming, you need a little bit more than blow up inflatables. And I'm not trying to disparage anybody or say we don't have the experts. I just don't know that the state of Virginia has the experts in this field here.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Lucas.
Senator D-Step, the Secretary of Finance is here. He might be able to respond to some of your questions.
You may want to hold him for a later moment. I think we can mull around the thought about that. Now would be the proper time for anyone who is here against any of these proposals to come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Todd Gacken with the Family Foundation, and we strongly oppose casino gambling and sports betting. Casino gambling acts like a regressive tax by exploiting those who can least afford to lose. It leads to more addictions at a time when alcoholism and opioids are already causing great harm to individuals, families, and communities. But these concerns are well documented and understood, as all the patrons recognize the problems, which is why they established the Problem Gaming Treatment and Support Fund. There are also significant financial costs associated with casinos. For every dollar of gambling revenue, taxpayers pay at least $3 in increased criminal justice and welfare expenses. We don't question the motives of the bill patrons. I'm sure they have genuine desire to improve the economy of their locality or improve the lives of the people living within the area in which the bill stipulates, but casinos are simply not the answer. It will make matters worse. Casinos are known to breed unfulfilled promises. They do not revitalize a community or generate new dollars. They simply take same dollars that are otherwise going to local businesses, restaurants, and attractions. Casinos will exacerbate the problems associated with crime and human trafficking. In fact, the I-81 corridor has already been monitored for human trafficking. Procedurally, these bills fail to seek the approval of all the impacted localities. The approval by one small locality could impact thousands of Virginians in the surrounding counties. And the fact that these bills limit casinos to certain designated localities guarantees that a few wealthy interests will benefit. Virginia has up to now recognized the numerous financial and social ills associated with casino gambling. Virginia is one of 8 states that had the wisdom to not take the bait of the casinos, and we've been better for it. And we shouldn't take the bait now, but especially without the approval of all Virginians. With respect to sports betting, many of the same consequences apply, but SB 1356 goes further because they bring gambling right to your home computer, mobile device, and tablet. It essentially turns them into a mini casino. Online gambling would provide a gateway to expose children to gambling and its consequences. It is nearly impossible to adequately regulate online gambling. Now, with smartphones, tablets, and other devices, young people have easy access to addictive online gambling, potentially without their parents even knowing. The primary rationale for sports betting, as it is often recited, is more tax revenue. We hear statements like, we're losing revenue to West Virginia to fund their roads and schools. The question for this committee, therefore, is whether the addictions, the breakdown of families, the financial burdens is worth the additional tax revenue. So again, legalizing sports betting and casinos would be a huge expansion of gambling in Virginia that will have severe social and financial repercussions. The Family Foundation asks you to vote no to sports betting and casinos. Thank you for the time.
Welcome.
Eddie Aliff, Executive Director, Virginia Assembly of Independent Baptists, and we've been here a long time. I identify myself with the comments that Mr. Gackey made excellent comments. We were here when horse racing was allowed, and we made the predictions then. And we keep hearing the projections of these companies for what casinos can do. And while those are glowing predictions, I'm afraid it's a dim bulb. I'm afraid it's not going to come to realization as they had hoped. Same thing with the horse track. Horse racing cannot even succeed in Virginia without adding in the historical gambling, and they know it. And so we're here trying to fix a problem. We just think it's the wrong way. I wish I was wise enough to give you the right answer, what to do. But I just don't believe that this is the right way, and therefore we oppose these bills. Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I am Jeb Hannum, Executive Director of the Virginia Equine Alliance, which is a nonprofit organization that represents the racing and breeding industries in the Commonwealth. I'd just like to say at the outset, I'm not speaking for or against the bills that were discussed earlier today, but just to speak to the timing. First of all, I'd like to thank the General Assembly for supporting Virginia's horse racing industry by passing HB 1609 last year. This legislation led to the purchase of Colonial Downs, which I'm pleased will reopen this year and will hold live horse racing for the first time since 2013, starting in August. The reopening of Colonial Downs, along with the incentive programs to attract state horses, out-of-state horses to the Commonwealth, positions the industry for growth, all of which were due to last year's legislation. In all the states surrounding the Commonwealth, the gaming industry works hand in hand with the horse industry to grow agribusiness and horse racing. The sheer number and complexity of the proposed gaming legislation this year makes it difficult to comprehend the effects to the state's agriculture and horse industry, although it is a start to forming some type of consensus on Class 3 gaming for the future. With so many ideas and so many questions that need to be answered, it would be our suggestion that the bills would go to a study so that we can all work together to come up with a consensus bill that works for all parties here in the Commonwealth. Or should a bill be passed out of committee, we would like a seat at the table to discuss benefits to the horse racing industry and to agribusiness. Thank you for the opportunity to address the committee.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Rodney Hathaway. I'm the County Administrator for New Kent County. And on behalf of the New Kent County Board of Supervisors, we could not be more excited about the reopening of Colonial Downs this summer. It has been awfully quiet there since its last race in 2014. Since that time, we've been losing $400,000 a year in tax revenue, and now we stand to gain millions every year in tax revenue that is critically needed. Instead of seeing 281 people lose their jobs like they did in 2014, we're going to see hundreds of new, good-paying jobs created. As you can tell, the track is crucial to economic development and job creation in our county, and that is an understatement. We are incredibly appreciative of the work you all have done to pass House Bill 1609 during last session and allow for world-class horse racing to return to New Kent County. This is a transformative moment for our community. We thank you. Now, we would hope that you will give horse racing the opportunity to truly get reestablished and operational again while you consider other gaming proposals that have come before you. We are not opposed or supportive of a casino at this point. That's because we do not have enough information to know where we stand. And unfortunately, we believe that the Commonwealth doesn't have enough information either. We have been watching the issue of gaming closely and know the many bills in front of you this session. Since we will have HHR, Historic Horse Racing Games in our county, shortly, and because the Pamunkey Indian tribe has announced that they were going at one point to build a casino in our county. In fact, last May, we had a law firm that specializes in Native American casino legislation present at one of our countywide town halls because of some of the concerns that were raised by our citizens. It was very informative. They let us know that the Pamunkey Indian process from this point on to get federal recognition is an uphill battle, and that even if they receive that, there are still a lot of obstacles to overcome, including the need to negotiate a compact with the Commonwealth if they want to offer any Class III gaming. And they have advised us that at a minimum, this could be a 10-plus year process. I highly recommend that your committee and all interested parties get a similar presentation on these issues. It was an eye-opening and provided much-needed information. I would also note that we are seeing other bills introduced this session that, albeit with the best intentions, appear to be putting forward job and revenue projections that don't match with reality of the industry. Take, for example, that some of the localities are touting casinos that will cost far less to build, but yet generate more gaming revenue and create more jobs than the Wynn Resort on the Las Vegas Strip. That doesn't seem plausible. Again, I highly urge the committee to let experts study these numbers and to take the time to really find out what localities will or will not gain if any of these measures should ultimately be approved in Virginia. Take the time to get educated and obtain facts. These are big decisions. The Commonwealth had 2 statewide referendums to establish lottery and pari-mutuel wagering. These bills before you also deserve a lengthy discussion. In conclusion, as part of the Commonwealth, we want to encourage you to please do your homework and to do what every other state in the country has done when making major gaming decisions. Consult experts to help determine what is the best path forward for Virginia and ensure that these proposals get the due diligence and thorough study that they need and require. Thank you.
Thank you. Secretary Lane, you want to give us your perspective of the administration's proposed study?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Aubrey Lane, Secretary of Finance. I've listened intently over the last couple hours, and I've read the bills, and I'm glad we're all in agreement on where we're going to go from here as we move forward. But here I'm representing on behalf of Governor Northam, and he gave some indication of his position on what this was last year when his first executive directive because of the legislation that came about from revolutionary racing. I'm not here to speak in favor nor against any of the proposals, but here to advocate that we need to understand what we're about to undertake. We've heard the differences between casinos. We've heard the differences between online gaming, charitable gaming, sports betting. We have the federal government with the Bureau of Indian Affairs related with the Pamunkey tribe. So there's a lot of fairly complex situations that we need to understand. And they fall in 4 main categories. First of all is financial. And I want to point out that up until now, until recently, last year, the gaming in Virginia was for a public purpose. That was education. All the lottery proceeds went to education. Last year, with revolutionary racing or the horse betting, was the first time in our history, I believe, in a long time, where those proceeds were not going to a direct public purpose. So we need to understand the revenue sharing aspects of that. And we've heard the differences in tax rates. We've heard the differences between how much we should split with the localities versus the actual proprietors of these properties. There's an interrelationship between the various gaming options and what's that going to do on the impact of not only our lottery, but our ability to negotiate others as we expand this. So that's one area. At the end of the day, who shares in these revenues? Second of all is the regulatory structure. I've heard several different recommendations on how that ought to be. The fact of the matter is there's no clear path forward. If you look at our agencies now in our code, it's sprinkled all throughout. There's no clear understanding of the impact that it would have for us to be able to appropriately regulate this, and not only from the standpoint of protecting our citizens, but also from the standpoint of making sure, as Senator Steph has mentioned over here, we get the best deal possible. I'll remind you, I was Secretary of Transportation, and we went down this path with the private sector before with public-private partnerships, and we learned a very valuable lesson that we need to understand what we're doing before we enter into some of these significant financial transactions. We've heard a little bit the third area is social concerns, and certainly we've heard about maybe the impacts on our citizens, but also the responsible gaming standards. The lottery has put a lot of effort into that. And what standards are we going to put in that as we have our citizens? And finally, the unintended consequences. And I'll remind you, last year with the racing bill, as soon as it was passed and it came to the governor's office, we were getting a lot of calls because people didn't understand that the pari-mutuel slot machines were a lot like regular slot machines and looking. And so there was this big outcry as to, well, I didn't really understand what we were doing. And I don't mean that to be critical of anybody. That's just what happened. We're going to have unintended consequences. So with that in mind, what the governor has recommended in his budget is just a study that would be due the end of this coming year. Actually, I can't remember if it's, I think it may be November of this year, working with the legislature, with all the impacted people out here, our citizens, and all the people, and understanding so we can make a recommendation on these 4 areas to you as you make the decision. And again, here, that is not about being against gambling. It is about understanding where we're headed and making sure we get the best deal and best protections for our citizens. So, Mr. Chairman, in a nutshell, that's pretty much where the governor's position is.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Reeves.
Mr. Secretary, how long do you need to think that study needs to go to get your ducks in a row? Because it looks like this thing's on a pathway. So
Yes, sir.
what's realistic, no BS?
November 1st. We have already begun the process of what happened last year, Senator Reeves, in terms of looking at other states and what they're doing. And of course, while nothing has been decided, we've had communications with the Pamunkey Indian tribe. Obviously, they have put in front of us some information on that timeline. So I actually believe November 1st is realistic, and that's working with outside, to your comment, Senator Stepp, also getting outside expertise to help us going through this. So this is not about moving forward or not moving forward, but it's getting the right information.
Mr. Chairman, follow up.
Continue.
Mr. Secretary, what is that going to cost the Commonwealth just to do that, you figure?
Yeah, we looked around, and our outside consultant, somewhere around $175,000 to $200,000. Besides the internal, my office is charged with doing this. So besides the internal coordinating with agriculture and commerce and trade and all that, but somewhere around $175,000 to $200,000.
Mr. Chairman, final.
Continue.
So the state's going to have to pay for that, or can we get the folks that want to gamble have to pay for that?
The state is always anxious to get anybody who would help to pay for things, but we have that in the proposed governor's budget.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Reeves, I think there might be a conflict of interest in that process.
Mr. Chairman, any questions?
Senator Searle.
Secretary Lane, I'm not sure if you were in the room when I asked the question of Senator Lewis that was deferred to you, but I don't know already whether you heard it on the intercom, but my question was, because of the Pamunkey situation, having to negotiate an interstate compact with them because they're a foreign country, technically, whether or not passing bills authorizing casinos in other places might prejudice the Commonwealth's bargaining leverage in terms of negotiating an arrangement that's best for our taxpayers, at least with respect to the Pamunkey situation.
One of the items with any of these people, including the Pamunkeys, is the level of competition they face in the state and in terms of the amount of revenue to be shared between the state and those parties. So that is a consideration as we go forward. As you know, there's some things that the Pamunkey tribe can do without state's concurrence. Class 3 casinos is one thing where, in fact, we would work with them on. And that is one of the criteria is what is the competition. Now, that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be. I'm not making any value judgments. I'm just pointing out that is one of the negotiated items.
Further question, Mr. Chairman?
Continue.
Okay, so I think the answer was it'll affect our leverage, I think is basically what you're saying. But the second question I have is, has the department looked at all at where this was done in other states that had lotteries, what the revenue impact on lotteries was?
We have, and there is an impact, obviously, because there's an interrelationship, and it depends on exactly how much we have is what that impact would be. In fact, one of the things were the impact studies as to what our current operations, how they'd be impacted. So I don't want to give a specific number. We do know there is an impact. The question is, is the pie as a whole greater than the slice we currently have?
Okay, one last question, Mr. Chairman.
Continue.
The Senate Finance staff was kind enough to email me a chart of what the tax rates are in the 22 other states, I think, that do this. And the tax rate that's reflected in this bill is consistent only with Nevada, which I think might be a little lower, and New Jersey, which of course has had Atlantic City for a long time. But everybody else's rates seem to go from at least 22 plus percent all the way up to 50. And so, I was curious if the
I
administration.
favor the 50, but anyway.
Right.
So-
So, yeah, I don't know if the administration's looked at all at to whether or not the rate impacts the economic development aspects that were reflected in this Chimera report, or, I mean, 'cause it seems to me there might be some strong interplay between the tax rate and the feasibility, and I'm not really clear how all that works together, whether you've looked at any of that.
Well, in any business deal, in terms of the sources of revenues and the cash needs, obviously that comes into play. And so the more going to one item is going to certainly impact the return on another. All that being said, back to, again, Senator Steph's point, it's a negotiation. And I don't think it's a cookie cutter negotiation. All these localities have different needs. There are different type proprietors that are in there. So I don't think it's going to be a cookie cutter thing where we say this one fits every area, because it depends on the services offered, what they expect the average bet to be, all those things. The total revenues is how you negotiate these particular deals.
Yeah, I don't have any other questions right now.
Senator
Thank you.
Steph.
Mr. Secretary, I'm going to try to get to this. It's going to take me a second. So I understand the study we're saying will be done by November 1st or 30th or sometime in November. We think it might cost $175,000. I think that what we're looking at here, what we're getting ready to step off into, I'm not sure if that's enough money. When would that study start? Because I'll be honest with you, if I'm going to build $1 billion casino, I'm going to spend a lot of money making sure before I take that investment that all my due diligence has been done. Before I take and do something huge, I'm going to make sure I put the money into it to make sure I've got the top experts who are advising me. I'm not quite sure $175,000 is enough, but I don't know how long that takes either. So have we already started studying this is the first question. Then how long do we think it's truly going to take to get a comprehensive study done? And then how comprehensive is that study? Because I want to make sure as we walk into this, and we won't talk about, other DOT-related things or anything like that, but a lot of times the Commonwealth, when we step into a negotiation, we're not really on the winning side in the end, and maybe we don't have the appropriate subject matter experts. So if you could kind of just ease my concerns a little bit.
The study does not equal the negotiations and who the private sector we might help in negotiating those deals. The study is just giving us parameters as across states what other deals have done, how other states have tackled these, looking at different compacts or looking at different agreements. That does not include what I would think we would need in professional help in actually negotiating these transactions. So I don't want you to confuse the fact of getting information that we can make a recommendation on how we should give an overall structure is going to be what we need to negotiate these deals in that regard. Because, in fact, one of the things, again, we don't want to talk too much about transportation, but I changed the professionals that we were using when I came in because they were not giving us the information. And you are correct. The Commonwealth has not done a very good job of assessing risk, the risk reward or risk benefit in dealing with the private sector. So, first of all, the study is not about that negotiation. We would have to get other people, I think, to guide us, legal representation going forward in that. Second of all, I do believe November, as Senator Reeves asked, is an appropriate time because we have begun looking at this internally because of what happened last year and knowing that this is coming. Again, we're not speaking against this at all. All we're speaking about is making sure we're making informed decisions. I'm not saying we're speaking for it either. I'm just pointing out that,
Understood.
But right now we want to give you a framework that if you choose, working with the governor, going forward in this, that we have a framework and we know what other states have done to begin these negotiations.
And Madam Chairwoman, if I can do one last
Senator
follow-up. And
Steph.
I'm not saying I advocate putting it to a study or not. I'm not saying I advocate supporting it or not at this point. I just want to make sure that when we go into this, we've got both eyes open, and it really scares me if the study you're talking about is just, hey, we're going to look at what every other state has done, the compacts they've negotiated, what did they do right, what did they do wrong, so a lessons learned, then I'm more comfortable saying, okay, that's probably $175,000, $200,000 study. if we're going to say that study's going to make a recommendation to the Commonwealth of how to move forward on this and what's the best approach to take, I think that may be a little bit more comprehensive of the study.
Again, I would just say, Senator, there is a difference between giving us a framework and actually negotiating the deal with the people we need to actually do that with.
Okay. Any more questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Amigo, would you now go over the other two issues that we're going to talk about?
Yes, sir. The next bill, the two bills are charitable gaming bills. Senate Bill 1527 is Senator Sturtevant's bill. It has 6 components. One of them is to add to the powers and duties of the Charitable Gaming Board the requirement to do an annual evaluation of the conduct of charitable gaming operations in the Commonwealth. It also restricts the, and then it gets into some of the more day-to-day operations of charitable gaming. It removes restrictions from the number of calendar days that charitable gaming can be conducted at buildings that are owned by nonprofit entities. It also raises to 4 the number of days that gaming may be conducted in buildings that are owned by a nonprofit entity. It removes the limit of 55 bingo games per session. It also increases the number of electric pull tab games or machines that may be placed in the social quarters of a qualified organization from 9 to 50. And finally, it authorizes the qualified organization to pay workers up to $50 per session.
Okay.
The next one is Senator McPike's bill, Senate Bill 1671, has 2 basic components. The first would be to create a special permit that would be granted to current qualified organizations that have already received a permit to conduct charitable gaming. And the permit would be to allow the organization to place electronic versions of instant bingo, pull tab, or seal card games at ABC licensed entities, so, with the consent of the licensee. The other component consists of 3 things. It limits the number of organizations for which a person may manage, operate, or conduct charitable games, and it prohibits providing compensation or any other remuneration to persons that are for organizing, managing, or conducting charitable games. And finally, the use of proceeds that is derived from the charitable games under this requirement as they relate to management operation. The conduct of charitable games is limited by that permit. So those, in a very quick nutshell, are what those bills do. Any questions on them?
Thank you. Senator Sturtevant, you want to talk about your bill a little bit? Senator Reeves said to reinforce a little bit.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Wade covered everything very well, and I think this was brought to me by the Virginia Charitable Bingo Association, and charities have been under a tremendous amount of stress due to declining bingo revenues over the last several years, but you heard all of the main points there before you in the overview, and I don't want to take up more than is necessary of the committee's time. I'll tell you, Mr. Lesson from the association is here if there are any questions that the committee has.
Come on up. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Chuck Lesson. I'm currently serving on the Virginia Charitable Gaming Board, but I'm here today as the legislative director of the Virginia Charitable Bingo Association. And I want to thank the senator for helping the many charities in his district and really beyond all through the state. Decades before any of us really thought about a lottery, sports book, fantasy sports, casinos, horse racing, we were gaming in Virginia, the charities were, by way of charitable bingo. And in the 1980s or so, the state took over control. As many of you know, it used to be regulated county to county and city to city. And since the state has taken over the regulation of charitable gaming, our gross revenue has declined from approximately $700 million a year to last year around $260 million. The charities are suffering, and we've come before you year after year, and this body has been very generous, and we have tweaked around the edges to try to improve the plight of the charities that elect to game by way of bingo. And we just have not met with great success. And one of those reasons is challenges from many other forms of gambling. This bill is super simple. It's probably the simplest thing we've ever asked of the General Assembly. We just want to sort of remove some of the restrictions that were imposed 2 or 3 decades ago that probably made sense then, but don't make sense now. For instance, as the senator pointed out, if a charity owns a bingo facility, the regulations currently say it can only be used 4 calendar days a week. The other 3 days a week, the building sits vacant. This bill would remove that restriction. What difference does it make if the charity wants to rent it out to other charities and use it 7 days a week instead of 4 days a week? If a building is owned privately, it can currently only be used 2 days a week. We're proposing that go to 4 days a week. Currently, the restrictions say we can only have 55 bingo games in a session. I think we can all agree that the market can really determine what's better for each area. A couple of years ago, we passed through the body a law that allows us to pay the workers. We'd already been able to pay the bingo managers and the bingo callers. Unfortunately, what we did a couple years ago was we paid the workers. We were allowed to pay the workers, but we did it by way of travel reimbursement, and that is turning into quite a cumbersome idea, and we're just proposing now to strike the travel-related expenses and allow us to pay these workers their great part-time jobs, and there are thousands of them all throughout the Commonwealth. And finally, we're asking that the social quarters be allowed to increase the numbers of electronic pull tab machines, and the reason for that is simple. They have become really popular, and they are helping many, many VFWs, FOPs, Moose, Elks, and countless other charities across the state. It is what our patrons want. They're younger, and they prefer electronic gaming, and they're out there already. So everything we've asked for in these bills is really not an expansion, but just to allow us to do what we're already being allowed to do, just removing some of these old restrictions that probably no longer make any sense. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
The Senator McPike, you had 1671.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I think Amigo gave also a pretty good summary about some of the conditions. And like the previous speaker, this is approached in support of also charitable gaming, VFWs, American Legion Post, and others that have had that similar pressure. This is also in response to that in providing a little bit different framework, both in terms of the instant pull tabs or instant bingos, as well as allowing some of the flexibility in terms of not just limiting to just members only, but allowing other organizations to support sort of the management of some of those events. So it allows a little bit more flexibility. I think there's some complementary features that were just discussed, and we have a few folks that will speak to it as well today.
Okay, bring them on up. Welcome.
Hello there, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I'm Chris Peterson here on behalf of the Virginia Charitable Gaming Council. And first, I'd like to thank the chairman for distinguishing this as a separate gaming category. We are very distinct from the other issues you've heard today. First, we've already been authorized by statute. We have a very robust regulatory scheme we operate under. Secondly, we do provide a public purpose. Our charities fund local athletic clubs, they fund Special Olympics, they fund cancer research at the Massey Center. Another good example of what we do, the VFW has a program in place where they have volunteers, paid staffers that help get benefits. Last year alone, the VFW generated $21 million of additional benefits for 1,100 veterans from the federal government. Their proceeds from their bingo operations are going to fund another staffer to assist those veterans. So we do have the societal purpose defined by statute that we do. We're not asking for something new. We're asking for regulatory flexibility. So the VCGC is here to support Senator Mike Pike's bill, but also the earlier bill. We believe we need modernization and flexibility to address new issues, new ways to provide games. Bingo was very popular a long time ago. It's not as much. It's an aging population. Our charitable purposes and charitable goods need these revenues to continue. We're looking for additional ways to provide that revenue. We'd like to be able to operate in ABC licenses right now. Presently, there are games of skills operating there. We'd like to operate in those establishments as well, sort of a level playing field, using machines that have been authorized, approved, audited by the state. So it's a fairly heavily regulatory structure. We just need the flexibility. To sort of go back to Secretary Lane's presentation, I think his presentation made a pretty good case in point for us. He said we need to have a share in the revenue, know where the revenue is going. We know where our revenue goes. It goes to the general fund and it goes to charities. That's defined already in statute. He says you need a regulatory structure to have gaming. We have that regulatory structure. That structure requires us to have our games reviewed by the state, approved by the state, audited by the state. And as you heard the earlier speaker, the number of games, when they can operate, we're heavily regulated. So we don't need any additional study to look at how should we be regulated. We also have gaming standards that are very important. The state does that. That was for the third point the Secretary made. And then unintended consequences. We've been around a long time. We know what the consequences are of charitable gaming. They're positive. They help charities. So we ask, for you to consider favorably our bills. I also have with me, and with the chair's permission, I'd like to share it with the clerk, a letter from the VFW. Their state commander wanted to testify today, but he's actually at a hearing trying to get some additional benefits for a Virginia veteran right now, so he was unable to make it. But if I could, I'd like to leave this with the clerk.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Any questions? Senator Evans.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to point out that when I began speaking, the room was full. And I'm not sure what happened, but the room is almost empty now, and so.
Next time.
We should have spoke first, yes.
I just want to promise Senator McPike that I'll clear it out by the end of my question. So I just want to help me understand the real world examples, because I'm not familiar with these machines. I know I should be. I know that we need more money for charitable gaming, but these machines are already in many restaurants and bars, right?
Yes, not charitable games. So there are games of skill that are in existing restaurants. We're asking for the opportunity, the flexibility to sort of level the playing field and allow our state-regulated games also in those establishments so that we can generate funds for charity by doing that.
Sure, and Mr. Chairman, just to follow up, the games of skill that you're talking about, can you just give me a description? Are you wagering on those machines?
As I understand how the games operate, and if you want to, you can go to Sliders right down the street on Main Street and play one, or Martini Bar. I don't know exactly what the name of the establishment is, but there is one just a couple blocks away. As they're described, there is sort of a slot machine type feel to it, but in order to win, an element of skill has to occur. So that, so you don't just win, you have to do something in addition. The ABC wrote a letter on this and described what they thought were the games of skills element. I can provide that to the committee if you'd like to look at that to sort of understand the game of skill element. We're just asking to be able to be side by side with them and to operate under our regulatory scheme in their establishments.
I appreciate it, and if Senator McPike will take me for a martini, we can go to that place and I'll get it all figured out.
Senator Stepp.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure I'm correct in this. And I've not heard of some of these terms before. So the pull tab machines, electronic instant bingo, they're similar to slot machines, correct? I mean,
in common vernacular, yes.
Okay.
I think that's probably the simplest way to sort of think about them.
And again, I'm not saying I'm for or against them. I just had never heard of the terms. So I'm just trying to get a control of the terms. I was Googling the pictures and a lot of different stuff comes up. I'm sorry. I was Googling pictures of electronic pull tabs, electronic instant bingo, and I wanted to make sure that I've not really seen these before, so I'm not familiar with them. And when I'm this far out of something, I tend to ask questions, and this is one I just hadn't seen.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are regulated and approved. So any machine that a charity operates will have been reviewed by the state and approved by the state for use for charitable purposes.
Great, thank you very much. When I asked my seatmate here, he was referring to the Schlitz malt liquor pull tabs from a couple of years ago.
I would point out that there was some concern about the games of skill. I had my sheriff went down and had one of his deputies go in and put in one coin, and on the first pull, he made a couple $100. So it took a lot of skill. He learned that in one pull. The one bill that we did not get, because I guess it hadn't dropped yet, or when we were doing it, was Senator Cosgrove raised the issue of the 6,000 plus machines of skill in the state now, which we have absolutely no control over. We don't know what percent profit they are, what the odds are. We don't know how much money is being taken in by them. We don't know how much money is leaving the state because they're emptying the machines and taking them with them, taking those results with them. I would also point out that two other bills that deal in the spectrum of gambling, somehow Senator Norman's bill didn't get on here, but essentially he would redirect some of the tax money differently than the various casinos wished. And third, because Senator Serval raised the issue, I have a bill that will deal with the lottery and make it a heavy fine if a store operator does not, it cashes a ticket at a discount, and then both he and the person who actually won would pay essentially double the difference. So anyway, is there anything that we have not discussed in the realm of, all right, wait a minute, come on up.
I know you're trying to get out of here. I'll make this very brief. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Josh Hetzler on behalf of the Family Foundation. Now, the Family Foundation, as you might know, doesn't typically weigh in on charitable gaming matters, but I want to point out that I think it's very, very important that this committee considers these two bills very, very carefully, because we think they have a much further impact than what may seem at first. And I'll just point out one of these games, electronic pull tabs. Senator DeSteph mentioned these. Well, just the electronic pull tab games, we began allowing those in November 2012 in Virginia. In 2013, the revenues were $107 million just from those. In 2014, it went to $253 million. In 2015, it went $386 million. In 2016, it jumped to $518 million. And finally, the last year we have numbers for $650 million in 2017. These bills would open just those up significantly. The first one from 9 per establishment to 50. We're talking about significant monies here that I think this committee should be very careful about. And with regards to the second bill, would essentially take charitable gaming and make it commercial gaming by placing these and other games in every establishment that sells alcohol, essentially. In the context of talking about casinos and all of the negotiations that are going to take place, I would suggest that this is going to be a factor, right? This is going to open up these types of games everywhere we go, all over the Commonwealth. It's something that we would like to not see, and I just want to put that before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to opine on any of these gambling issues? Thank you all for attending. You'll all win an extra star for staying the entire time. We are adjourned.